Split in versus split into. In this sentence, I have a bibliography page which I'd like to split and slash into sections. Which would you rather use, split in or split into? Why?
There's not really a grammatical justification for the choice, but idiomatically, we almost always use into with sections. Whereas with half, for example, there aren't many such examples, it's the other way around. In fact, apart from half, I'm not sure there's any other split you can make where into isn't preferred. If you compare split in slash into 2, the preference isn't quite so marked, but that's probably influenced by the unusual usage with half. As you go to bigger numbers, the preference for into is overwhelmingly reasserted. For a weak justification of the idiomatic preference for split into over split in, I suggest that in numerous compound verbs, lapse into a coma, descend into chaos, developed into full-blown AIDS, etc., the into component strongly associates with transformation of the primary subject. That association very much involves the subcomponent to, which can pass muster on its own in things like turn to stone, bring to focus, etc. With those, you can get away with into, but you couldn't possibly use in.
I have a bibliography page which I'd like to split and slash into sections. So, there is this bibliography page that you split in most cases. Whatever you split, I hope you always split into sections, because I find it to be sections, the best format to do so. I have a bibliography page which I splited into 12 sections. Yes, I presented it splitted in a recent report. Don't be afraid to split, go ahead and split comfortably. Just don't ever split into half but into halves or in half. Smile, hope that helped. I would use split into sections. From Oxford Dictionary. Divide or cause to divide into parts or elements. The river had split into a number of channels. Splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen apostrophe. Example sentences. It left me absolutely dumbfounded to see the 25-foot high walls, to see how towns have been split into two. He welcomed another measure now set to be adopted by the agency, under which the westbound carriageway will be split into two separate lanes. The development will be split into 5 separate blocks. Under the new scheme, the town centre will be split into 12 different zones which council bosses claim could be cleared in minutes. It takes energy to split the water molecule and release hydrogen, but that energy is later recovered during oxidation to produce water. The exam is split into 10 separate tests, which last from 2 minutes to 18 minutes. The water molecule is split into hydrogen ions, positively charged atoms, and oxygen. Classes, which last for 45 minutes, are split into separate sessions for babies, 1 to 2-year-olds, and 2 to 4-year-olds. This electricity splits the water molecules in an electrolyte, producing hydrogen. After much debate, it was split into 2 separate and distinct countries. This resulted in 2 items being added, no items being dropped, 1 item being split into 2 separate items, and 1 item having minor wording changes. The program is split into 3 separate phases. Her hair was pulled back into a large ponytail which was split into 5 separate braids. But when did the Olympics split into separate summer and winter games? And where were the first Winter Olympics held? The playing field is split into 3 separate areas, surface, air, and underground. The cotton country on this farm is split into 2 separate developments of about 1,250 acres each. The flow of coolant when entering our heatsink base is split into 6 separate channels and 2 separate directions. The response was split evenly. 44% didn't work, 44% did work. The retail business of both his Florida and New Mexico stores was split evenly between new and pre-owned vehicles. Sozopol is split into 2 main parts, the Old Town and New Town, known as Harmonite.
We generally use into to talk about directions and destinations, while we use into to talk about the positions of thing. So you have to use split into in your example because the destinations of the bibliography are the sections. However, we might use 1. Into when we think of the division, split, itself. 2. In when we think more at the end of division.
Split in sections does not make any sense, you would have to split something into sections.
I think either one is acceptable. The word in has well over 20 definitions, and one of them is into something. So, I have no problem with divide this page into 3 sections. Moreover, I would accept to divide this page in 3 sections, although the former seems to sound a bit more natural to me. As an example of how vexing this could be, I'd probably say, cut this candy bar in half. But also, cut this candy bar into thirds.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.